This is an open letter to Bill Maher with regards to equity and equality. Here's the thing, sir. 500 years ago, or let's say 1,000 years ago, well diggers, people a person who had the physical aptitude to dig with a pick and shovel, to dig all day long and not die under the heat and under the sun, do difficult physical activities such as digging a well, digging all day long. That person was making good money, good income 1,000 years ago. Whatever money was, however he was compensated very well. Probably he was compensated better than people who had a little bit of cognitive ability. So this man whose job was digging wells, and he was physically fit and quite big, and he could, get the job done and dig a well by himself in a matter of a month or 2 months, he was getting paid, whatever the currency was, he was getting paid equivalent or usually better than a person who had some kind of cognitive ability. Somebody who could, add numbers or write poems or write books or, copy books or whatever work that demanded cognitive ability. This guy with physical ability was making more than that guy with cognitive ability, usually, or equivalent. And this, if we imagine that society at least is divided, human society is divided right in the middle. Let's imagine that. It's divided right in the middle, which is usually true. It's all in a curve, but imagine that 50% of the society has cognitive aptitude, and the other 50% has more physical aptitude. Now, the idea is not that the ones who have cognitive aptitude are usually, they're all Stephen Hawking, and, they can't even walk. They can barely breathe, but their brain really works well. No, it doesn't have to be that. As I said, it's all on the curve. But 50% of society have more cognitive aptitude, and 50% of society has more physical aptitude. They're not totally dumb, but they're more, they're more physically fit. They like to do physical activity. They prefer to do physical activity. They're good at physical activity. Like the guy who digs a well, used to dig a well 1,000 years ago. My point is this. From the time, my point is this, that it was never considered when mechanization and automation came into play. Demand for hard labor, physical activity, people who are good at physical activity and like and enjoy physical activity, demand for their work, their aptitude suddenly dropped. So the result was that you have 50% of your society who are built for these kinds of jobs that are physically demanding. But since the time of mechanization and later automation, you didn't have any jobs for these folks. You didn't create any job, and few jobs that still remain today that demand high physical aptitude are titled as low skill labor, and therefore you expect low pay, low skill, low pay. So automatically you expect a low pay because the name of the job, the title of the job is low skill labor. which is what? Which is means physically demanding labor. Usually, all physically demanding labor qualifies as low skilled labor. So my point is this, that you stop, the society stopped, after mechanization and automation, the society stopped from wanting, needing physical aptitude in its members. Now, what the hell the 50% who are physically gifted are supposed to do? How they're supposed to eat? How they're supposed to obtain some kind of equity in that society? What I mean is simple. The guy who used to dig a well and get paid well for digging, for his job, for his skill of digging a well, he used to get paid well. So he had that money that he got paid, had that income that he had, he would purchase equity within his village. You know, buy a house or build a house, put together some kind of equity, a house, send his children to school, do this, do that, do the other, get married, have children. Equity, all of this would be considered as equity within his small society. All of it, well, large society. House, marriage, children, school, something for retirement, setting aside, all of this together can be considered as equities of an individual within his society. Now, although this well digger was not cognitively able, but he was very well physically able, and he was able with the money that he got, that was very on par with people who had cognitive abilities. With that pay, he could purchase equity within his society. Now you turn back to today, you move forward to today. 50% of the society, which are more physically apt and less cognitively apt, are not getting enough income to purchase equity within their societies. That's real estate, stocks and bonds, and even a family, affording children, affording to send their children to school and university and this and that and the other. So this large group of people, 50% of the society, who prefer physical activity, who have more aptitude towards physical labor, either there is no job for them, there's no labor for them, or if there is, it's titled as low skill labor and it pays shit. Some say this pay is an entrance pay, and this low pay, for example, in fast food work is meant for teenagers, and it was meant as an initiation pay for coming into the workforce. And all employees should try to achieve more, and so eventually they can become a manager, and eventually maybe they can become the CEO and get paid. But what they leave out, what they don't want to recognize because doesn't suit them, is that no, the guy who's physically apt to stand on his feet 8 hours, 10 hours a day, doing simple labor such as in fast food work, he's 9 out of 10 times he's not equipped to do cognitive work. Let's be frank. The problem starts, Mr. Bill Maher, with this political correctness matter, that with this idea that men are created equal. Fuck you. They're not. This is the problem, that we have come up with a myth that all men are created equal. Yes, equal in humanity, equal in respect, and that we have to allow them, equal in, yes, those are understood. Equal in their rights to those are understood. They are born equal. But as far as aptitude, as far as what they are, what they're good for, men are not created equal. Like these, some cocksuckers came up and said, yeah, well, the truck drivers, their job is going to, become automated again by self-driving. So why don't the truck drivers start learning how to code computers? And you're thinking to yourself, like, if the guy liked coding, he would be coding right now. If he was good at it, people are attracted to things that they're good at. Let's be frank. The whole idea of having aptitude, you have the aptitude, you like to do it, then you do it, then you like doing it, so you're attracted because you're good at it, at whatever you're doing. So they all go hand in hand. So the guy who became a truck driver wasn't because he was, he liked coding, but but he decided to do truck driving anyway. No, this is what he's equipped for. This is what he's good at. He picked up the skill, then he saw he was good at it, then he saw he enjoyed it, and he continued, and he's been driving trucks for 15 years, 20 years. Believe me, I tried driving a truck for a month. That was all I could handle. It wasn't for me. But the point is this. I actually got a CDL and drove a 18-wheeler for a month before deciding that it wasn't for me. But the point is this, that people who here's another thing that happens. Here's another thing that happens when you say that people are equal, and the people who do physical activity can, on a dime, they can turn and start doing cognitive activity. This is what happens. What happens is that, one, you give them this false impression that they can actually do cognitive work, while they're only equipped for physical activity, physical work. But not only you do a bad thing by giving them that impression that they can do it, you do a bad thing, but in order to prove that you're right, that everybody can do the same cognitive work all around, you bring down your standards. So you make the tests easier, or you just say, oh, tests are irrelevant, we don't need tests. So, and you keep passing people into, giving them diplomas and graduate them from this and graduate them from that, without actually testing them. So you're shooting yourself in your foot. You're bringing down the quality as well. Just because we have a saying in Persian. We say that if you lay down the first brick on the wall, for the wall, if you lay it down crooked, this wall will go to the sky crooked. It will never straighten out, because the first brick was laid down crooked. So here's the problem. The idea that you keep insisting, they kept insisting that all men have the aptitude to do, if they put their mind to it, they can become, Stephen Hawking. If Shaquille O'Neal can put his mind to it, he can become a physicist or a mathematician or even a tax attorney. If only Shaquille O'Neal wants to, he can become a tax professional. He can do your taxes. This is the crooked brick that you're laying down. No, it's not. I give you another example. Stormy Daniels came on your show, and you talked to him, and at one point in the interview you told Stormy Daniels that okay, now that you got known and you had a book out and you're well known, your face, your name, your persona has become well known, why don't you do something something else. And what you meant was like, okay, you can stop doing porn, or you can make equivalent money doing something else. Probably in your view, you meant like something more, presentable, something more socially acceptable, and something like that. That's what you had in mind when you said it, or something with more money and less, stigma attached to it. And you said this to Stormy Daniels, and Stormy Daniels looked at you kind of puzzled. It's like, why would I want to do that? That goes back to the same point that I'm trying to make here. Stormy Daniels is good at porn. She likes doing porn. She has the physical aptitude to do porn. She has done it for so long. She enjoys it. She's good at it. That's what she wants to do. She can't write code. She can't become a talk show host. She doesn't have enough words in her vocabulary. She can't, become an astronaut. She can't become a physicist. She can't. Do you see where maybe she probably doesn't like sitting behind a fucking desk, where most of the cognitive work takes place. People with cognitive aptitude, most of their work takes place behind a fucking desk. Many people, 50% of the society doesn't like to sit behind a desk. They get bored. People who have physical aptitude, who are physically apt, who are, need to do something with their body. They die if you keep them behind a desk for too long, doing cognitive work. That's on top of the fact that they're not, cognitively gifted. That's not a crime. But here's the thing, your society has made this matter a crime. Not being cognitively gifted results into not getting those cognitively demanding jobs, which means you only get physically demanding jobs, which are titled as low skill labor, which you get paid shit for doing it. Therefore, because you're getting shit for doing those physically demanding jobs, because apparently the society no longer values it in 20th century and 21st century, the result is that many have to resort to crime to make ends meet. So you have made it, not having cognitive ability, having less cognitive ability has resulted into becoming a criminal. You have made it a crime. You have forced people to commit crimes just because they're not mentally gifted, cognitively gifted. Just because you don't want to recognize, because you're politically correct and you want to say everybody's exactly equal, and if they just put their mind to it, everybody can become a talk show host. No, they can't. Just like trying to say I saw somewhere in a documentary that they are putting up these classes for stand-up comedy, sort of like, so you're not funny, you've never been funny, you don't have a funny bone in your body, but if you come into this class, and at the end we're going to give everybody a certificate of passing, but now you can go and be funny. It's not possible. Just like you cannot dig a well and I cannot dig a well, just like I cannot do physics and you cannot do physics at higher levels. The point is this political correctness has resulted here's where the equality comes into play. The political correctness meant, they wanted to be politically correct. They said, okay, well, they meant well, as always. All roads to hell is paved with good intentions. They meant well. They said, okay, if we give equal opportunity to all these motherfuckers in the society, if we give equal opportunity, they all will eventually, that will eventually lead to equal equity in this society. If we give them equal opportunity, if we allow all of them to study medicine, anybody who wants to study medicine, go and study medicine, that will result into, at the end, they're all becoming doctors, and with the money they make as a physician, they can, purchase equity within the society, get their share within the society. But not recognizing that 50% of these motherfuckers, members of the society, any society on planet Earth, any human society, 50% of them are have only physical aptitude with minor cognitive aptitude. If you don't have jobs for them that they qualify for and pays them well for, they will never be able to purchase equity within your society. They will never be able to obtain any kind of equity because they're not going to make the money. Because what you're teaching them, but by giving them equal opportunity to become doctors and engineers and mathematicians and physicists, and by giving them equal opportunity, when half of them are not equipped to take advantage of that equal opportunity, half of them are not equipped to make any use of that equal opportunity, because the equal opportunity you're giving them is within cognitive fields. None of it is within physical fields. The opportunity that they have in physically demanding fields are either called low-skilled labor, and they don't get paid enough in those fields to purchase any kind of equity within your society, or in like a anecdotal examples such as NFL and NBA and these physically demanding sports that are broadcast worldwide. Yes, the very few, the handful of people that get into those physically demanding jobs get paid extraordinarily well. But then again, there is a handful of those jobs available. So Shaquille O'Neal, who becomes one of those handful of people who qualify for that specific physically demanding job, makes a lot of money, much more than many cognitively demanding jobs in your society. But Shaquille O'Neal's cousin, who's just as gifted, but for some reason didn't qualify for NBA. He had a knee injury or an ankle injury or whatever that prevented him from qualifying. Although he was just as physically fit, just as physically apt as Shaquille O'Neal, but because he had some kind of issue, maybe a felony or something, that prevented him from qualifying to play in the NBA, he's ended up flipping burgers. But then that's considered as low-skilled labor. Although, a cook, cook has, with a lot of experience, has just as much skill as a basketball player in his own field. But again, because Flippy the robot can do his job nowadays, he was considered as low-skilled labor, and he gets paid shit. And then, your society turns to him and says, but you can get a loan and go study and become a physician, or a tax professional, a tax attorney. Mr. Bill Maher, would you ever consider giving Shaquille O'Neal's cousin, letting Shaquille O'Neal's cousin to do your taxes, no matter how many years he has attended college? I wouldn't, because I don't care if he got a degree for it because apparently they made tests illegal and everybody has to get a certificate and everybody has to pass. I don't care about that. I look at him, I talk to him, I figure out that he's not cognitively very apt, but he's very apt physically. So I'm not going to give him my taxes. I may give him, a job as a cook, but I won't give him to let him do my taxes or your taxes. It's simple. So here is what has happened. After so many years of trying to pretending that everybody's equal and everybody has the same cognitive ability and everybody can do a cognitive job and everybody enjoys doing a cognitive job, after building wrong assumption on top of wrong assumption on top of false assumption on top of false assumption, after building this wall crooked all the way to the moon, now they have reached the conclusion that, well, all this equal opportunity to do cognitive work, get paid well for it, didn't materialize into equal equity, because half of our population, can't do cognitive work. So equal equity, they weren't able to get paid for cognitive work, so they didn't get enough equity, purchasing power, so they couldn't purchase enough equity in the society. So now they put another false brick on top of it. The last false brick was, let's graduate everybody, and the last crooked brick in last decade or two was, let's graduate everybody, give everybody a certificate, take away the tests, lower the standard of testing so everybody can pass. That was the last crooked brick on top of this crooked wall. The next crooked brick is this, that, okay, let's directly give them equity. They weren't able to get equity because they can't do cognitive work, and we don't want to pay for physical work because we have machines doing that job for us now. So now let's directly pay them equity. Well, that will work only in terms of universal basic income. You pay them universal basic income and it will work out. But a step before that, they have turned to saying that, okay, you have to hire these folks who are not cognitively apt for jobs that demand cognitive aptitude. And this was your issue, Mr. Bill Maher. This is the issue that pissed you off directly, and that was, this whole idea that in your writer's room, they have to, you have to have a certain percentage of your writers of, this race and that race and the other race and like this, and at the same time that you kept on saying that if they were qualified, they would already be in some writer's room. They are not. That means they're not qualified, they're not good at it, they probably don't enjoy it. Why are you forcing me to have these folks in my writer's room? And you're right. This is because they're not good at it. They weren't good at it. They didn't have the aptitude, the cognitive aptitude for it. But they went to college and got a degree for it, and they lowered the standards to give them a degree. And that still didn't work out because nobody was ever willing to give them a job for that cognitive work that they got a degree for. Nobody was willing to give them a job, and now they're forcing you and the likes of you and other people and other organizations, they're forcing them to give them a job so these guys can purchase with that job, with the help of that job, they can have some kind of good income, more than sufficient income, so they can purchase equity within your society. A house and a family, put together house, a household, a bank account, a retirement account, this and that. So in order to make sure that they get, and here's the thing, to be frank, I'm not against everybody in the society to have an equity within that society. In fact, that's the one way you can make sure stability and security within that society. That's one way you can make sure that shit doesn't get burned down in a riot. If everybody has some kind of a stake within that society, everybody has a skin in the game, everybody has equity within that society, that's when, things function better, and you don't have to, crack them over the head. The police doesn't have to crack down too often, because people don't revolt too often, don't riot too often, because every one of them has an equity within that society. For example, if you're a rioter, and if you're a protester, but you have some stocks, a few stocks in Target, and a few stocks in Walmart, and a few stocks in, McDonald's stocks, then there is a less chance you trying to burn down an outlet of Walmart or Target or McDonald's. So the equity, there's no question about it. Everybody has to get that equity. Have to have an equity in the society, so the society can function normally. Be stable. But this equity, the way they're trying to go about not recognizing that you have taken away physically demanding jobs, you have replaced them with nothing, but there's still some cognitively demanding jobs available, but you're trying to push everybody into those cognitively demanding jobs, although they're not qualified for it, they don't like to do it, they don't enjoy it, they're just not there. They were unsuccessful in doing that. Now they want to force organizations and other people in order to give them those jobs by quota. It's sort of like, oh, you got a quota here, 50% of your writers have to be this, and you have a quota of 50% on your board of directors have to be this and that and this and that, and for people who are not qualified. Okay, solution is simple, Mr. Bilmo. Up to this point, this is the problem. The problem is you're not recognizing 50% of the society is not meant to do cognitive work on an everyday, on a competitive basis. Let's put it this way. Everybody was not meant to do cognitive work competitively. Competitive cognitive work. Shaquille O'Neal can do everyday things that we all do. That's no problem. But he probably he can't do physics. That's understood. I mean, no disrespect to Mr. O'Neal, Mr. O'Neal's fictitious cousin. So we have to recognize that Mr. Shaquille O'Neal's fictitious cousin, he is 90% physical aptitude, or 80% physical aptitude, 20% cognitive aptitude. He prefers to be physically active. Once we and he prefers, and he's qualified, and he's enjoys doing physically demanding work, and not so much cognitively demanding work. Once we recognize that and understand that doesn't matter if we give him a certificate for it, as recognize him as a physician, give him a certificate for it, or even force a fucking hospital to hire Mr. Shaquille O'Neal's fictitious cousin. Even if we force a hospital to hire him, he's gonna probably kill some people out of inaptitude. The point is this: once we recognize this, we understand that you have two choices. either create, just out of thin air, create physically demanding jobs that pay in your societies, create physically demanding jobs that pay on par with cognitively demanding jobs. We understand up to now that was not a possibility. Nobody wanted to do it because under capitalism it's not efficient. If you can have a machine do it, a robot do it at 1/10 of the cost, why the fuck you want to hire a human being who gets sick and does this and does that, and a lot of problem arises. So that's why they have tried to stay away from human labor in the physical field, because there was an option of becoming mechanized and automated. So first the manufacturing jobs became automated, then farming jobs became automated, and now, you know, slowly we're going towards where even service jobs have become automated, or becoming automated. My point is this: either you have to artificially create some jobs, 50% of the jobs in your society has to be artificially created and well paid, where physical aptitude is the demand, physically demanding jobs that pays very well. You know, just like a digging well used to pay, you know, one of the highest salaries in any society 1,000 years ago. Similar to that, you don't need digging wells anymore. You have to just, the governments have to start creating jobs. Like, you know, every other person you meet might need to be some kind of a professional sports person, be involved in some kind of professional sport. 50% of the society can be paid for just playing sports at the professional level. You don't need any audience. They just get a paycheck to play sports 8 hours a day. Because, you know, we can't go backward. What I'm trying to say is we can't go backward and say, okay, take away the technology and we're going to go back to digging wells with picks and shovels. That we can't do. That's stupid. So the only kind of physical activity that remains, that without taking the technology away, we still can perform it, humans can still perform it, are sports. So this is one way to do it. Create equity in the society by paying people well based on their own aptitude. The people who are physically apt, they don't need to be given equal opportunity in studying for some kind of a cognitively demanding jobs. No, they already have the physical aptitude. They don't care for cognitive aptitude. So create different kinds of sports and pay them well to just play those sports, period. Even if there are no audience, there are no TV stations, there are no nothing, the government is paying them to just play sports 8 hours a day within an organized fashion. That's one way to do it. The other way is universal basic income, just paying them for existence, and pay them enough so with that money they have enough left over so they can purchase some kind of equity within the society, or be happy as they are, and since they know they're taken care of until their death, they wouldn't go on a riot. They would feel secure enough so not to participate in riots and burning down their own societies. Two options: pay them for what they have an aptitude for, and that is create all kinds of sports and start paying them well, very well, or just pay them and then let them loose and let them do whatever they enjoy doing, which is again probably going to be sports. A guy who's physically has a physical aptitude, whether you put him in the tell him he has to attend a team and you pay them monthly for participating in some physical activity, he will do that. And even if you don't go that route and you pay them universal basic income, he will take that money and still he will probably end up playing 8 to 10 hours of physically demanding sport for the rest of his life. But the first step is recognize equal opportunity will not mean equal equity at the one point in the future if you have eliminated 50% of the jobs in your society that were physically demanding. Just because you eliminated 50% of the jobs in your society that were physically demanding, that doesn't mean that the 50% who used to do those jobs, who are qualified for those jobs, are now suddenly going to come and participate in cognitively demanding jobs just on a dime, by just a few classes and a few certificates, and suddenly all those truck drivers and all those baseball players and basketball players suddenly on a dime, with a few classes and a few degrees that you give them freely without testing them, suddenly you can turn them into desk workers, cognitively demanding work. They will not do that. They cannot do. You cannot do. You have to recognize 50% of your society is not qualified for cognitive work. Just like the 50% who are qualified for cognitive work are not qualified for physical work. It goes both ways.